Welcome back, everyone, to Daily Harmony. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into, well, I think it's a really central idea in ACM,
Mm,
and it has the potential to be really transformative in people's lives.
yeah.
And that is Lesson 139, Atonement for Myself.
Oh,
Now, I know when people hear the word atonement, they often think of things like punishment or making up for past wrong.
right.
But the way that the Course presents this idea is really quite different.
Yeah.
And it's all about, but
Right.
a deep desire that I know so many of you listening have,
Mm-hmm.
which is to find lasting inner peace.
Absolutely. That's right. And, this lesson 139 is such a cornerstone
Yeah.
because it so directly addresses that concept of victimhood
Yeah.
that so many of us, I think, struggle with. And what's so fascinating here is how it really empowers you to recognize that taking responsibility for your inner world, your thoughts, your feelings, your interpretations, that is the most direct and effective way to cultivate that inner peace that you're seeking.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to really explore, what this profound sense of accountability truly entails
hmm
within the framework of ACIM.
Okay, so let's start by unpacking this idea of atonement a little bit, as it's presented in Course in Miracles.
Okay.
For those who mightn't be familiar, A Course in Miracles, or as it's often abbreviated, ACM, is a self-study spiritual thought system
Mm.
that really offers a pathway to inner peace through the process of forgiveness.
Mm.
So within this framework,
Yeah.
atonement is not about those external acts of penance
Yeah.
or seeking forgiveness from others.
In the traditional sense,
Precisely.
atonement in ACM is not about seeking external absolution or going through some kind of external process of making amends. Instead, what's really insightful is that it's fundamentally an internal correction. It's about correcting a very specific misperception
Yeah.
that we hold this deeply held belief in our separation. The feeling of being fundamentally disconnected from a source of love, from each other. And crucially, and we'll really dive into this,
Mhm.
as we go along here, it's about realizing your inherent power to shift your mind,
Right.
to choose a different perspective
Mhm.
in the world, on yourself.
So it's a shift in how we see things.
Yeah.
It's an internal realignment
Yeah.
rather than some external fix.
Exactly. It's about what's happening in our minds, not so much about the actions that we take in the world.
Yeah, so at its core, it's about accepting responsibility for the thoughts that we choose to hold, and then all of the subsequent feelings and actions
Mm.
that arise from those thoughts.
Mm.
And that is what the Course presents as the key
Mhm.
to unlocking profound inner peace
Mm.
and facilitating our own deep healing.
Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting if we consider sort of more conventional views, whether religious approaches to conflict or wrongdoing, or even secular approaches, there's often a very strong emphasis on expiation,
Yeah.
making amends outwardly, or achieving some form of external reconciliation. ACM very elegantly redirects that entire focus inward, and it places the power for change within you.
That's a really important distinction. And so if atonement in the Course is this, internal correction, this taking responsibility for our inner landscape, we'll delve into that word, accountability.
Okay.
What does it genuinely mean within the context of?
That's such a great question. And what's particularly insightful here is that accountability in ACIM transcends simply acknowledging our outward behaviors. It's about embracing complete ownership of our
Yeah.
thoughts, our emotions,
Yeah.
and the actions that inevitably stem from them. It's this profound understanding, as the Course presents it, that you are the primary creator of your own experience. Your inner world directly shapes how you perceive and interact with the outer world.
You are the creator of your own experience. That's such a powerful idea. It suggests that we have a level of agency that maybe we don't always realize we have.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that your state of mind, whether you find yourself feeling joyful and at peace or anxious and agitated, is ultimately within your dominion. This perspective directly challenges a very common human tendency, which is what we might call the blame game, that inclination to point fingers at external circumstances or other individuals as the root cause of our unhappiness or discomfort.
Well, I think that's something we can all recognize in ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, It's so easy to think, well, if only this person had acted differently, or if only these external conditions were better, then I would be content.
Mm-hmm.
But this Course is really prompting us to look in a different direction.
Precisely true. And lasting healing, the
Right.
kind that brings genuine inner peace, originates from taking that responsibility squarely inward, rather than perpetually attributing blame to the world outside of us. Consider that example of, maybe conflict with a coworker. Instead of simply stating, my coworker made me frustrated, the ACM perspective gently guides you to inquire deeper. What specific thoughts and interpretations arose within you in response to your coworker's actions? That ultimately led to that feeling of frustration. It shifts the emphasis from that external trigger to your internal processing of the event.
Okay, that really clarifies the depth of this idea of accountability. Now, this naturally leads us to the concept of breaking free from victimhood, doesn't it? Because if we're truly taking responsibility for our inner responses, it becomes harder and harder to see ourselves as simply at the mercy of external forces.
Exactly. Victimhood at its core is the deeply ingrained belief that you are fundamentally powerless, that you are merely a recipient of external events or the actions of others, without any real agency. And atonement, as presented in the Course, by its very nature challenges this often unconscious perspective by placing the primary emphasis squarely on personal responsibility for our thoughts and interpretations.
So lesson 139 is actively working to dismantle this feeling of being a victim of circumstance.
Absolutely. It's promoting the rather radical, yet ultimately liberating idea that you possess the inherent capacity to alter your perspectives, to consciously choose how you perceive and interpret the events unfolding around you by acknowledging your active and ongoing role in shaping your experiences through the thoughts you choose to entertain and believe. You naturally begin to step away from that limiting feeling of powerlessness. You start to recognize your own innate capacity for profound personal transformation and inner freedom.
This is also empowering. That really resonates so much with, this desire that we've been talking about for inner peace. But I can imagine for some, these ideas might feel a little abstract or maybe even challenging to put into practice. So are there some concrete practical ways that we can actually begin to integrate this principle of atonement as a responsibility into our daily lives?
That's such a crucial point. Intellectual understanding is a great starting point. But the real transformation comes through consistent application. And thankfully, the CARE course offers several really powerful tools that you can utilize. One is the practice of meditation, specifically focused on responsibility. Take a few dedicated moments each day for quiet reflection and gently bring to mind situations or relationships where you have a tendency to feel like a victim or to blame external factors. Then consciously redirect your focus inward and ask yourself, in this specific situation, what thoughts am I actively choosing to hold on to? What interpretations am I making?
That's such a direct
Yeah.
and introspective question. It really compels us to examine our own mental activity rather than focusing on what others are doing.
It does indeed. Another incredibly valuable tool is the practice of journaling with this intention. Choose a recent conflict or challenge that you've experienced. Now, instead of simply recounting the events and focusing on what others did wrong, which, as we discuss, is often our default setting, consciously shift your focus to your own role in the experience and explore how accepting even a small degree of responsibility for your reactions, your interpretations, or your initial thoughts could actually alter your entire perception of that event. A helpful journaling prompt here might be, in this specific situation, what thoughts or interpretations of mine contributed to my overall experience and my emotional response?
Journaling can be so powerful for uncovering patterns in our thinking that we might not even be consciously aware of.
Absolutely.
What's another tangible way that we can kind of work with this idea of taking responsibility for our thoughts?
Affirmations can be remarkably effective in reshaping our habitual thought patterns. Start intentionally incorporating affirmations that specifically reinforce this understanding of personal responsibility and your inherent power to choose peace. Create and consciously repeat positive statements that remind you of your agency. For example, you might use an affirmation like, I accept my role in creating my experiences, and I consciously choose peace and understanding over conflict and blame. Regularly repeating these kinds of affirmations can gradually help to rewire your thinking and reinforce that sense of inner control.
These are all really great actionable steps that our listeners can start incorporating today. Now, ACIM also talks a lot about this principle of interconnectedness, this idea that we are all part of a larger whole. So how does this concept of atonement for ourselves relate to this broader idea that we are all connected?
This is where the implications of this lesson truly expand and become even more profound. AC emphasizes that all beings are fundamentally interconnected, part of a unified field of consciousness, often referred to as the sonship. And this isn't just a comforting philosophical notion, it carries significant practical implications. This interconnectedness means that your individual thoughts and actions don't remain isolated within you. They actually create a ripple effect that extends throughout this shared consciousness, influencing the collective awareness.
Oh, our internal work of taking responsibility for our thoughts isn't just a personal endeavor with the individual benefits.
Precisely your thoughts, whether they are thoughts of peace, judgment, fear, or love, have an impact that extends far beyond the confines of your own mind. Therefore, when you consciously choose to take responsibility for your own thoughts, when you actively cultivate peace and understanding within yourself, you are not only healing your own mind, but you are also actively contributing to the healing of this larger interconnected whole. It's akin to dropping a pebble into a still pond. The ripples of your inner peace inevitably spread outward, influencing the collective.
Wow, that adds a whole new dimension of motivation to engaging in this inner work, doesn't it? Knowing that striving for our inner peace has a positive impact on something so much larger than ourselves.
It really does.
Now, as we reflect on this journey of embracing atonement as responsibility, there's a really important question that arises from these teachings. For our own personal contemplation.
Yes, and it's a truly pivotal question. For anyone sincerely engaging with Lesson 139, in what specific ways have I consciously or unconsciously resisted taking full responsibility for my experiences? And how might truly embracing the principle of atonement as personal responsibility fundamentally transform my perspective on myself and the world around me? This question really encourages you to honestly examine those areas where you might still be clinging to a sense of victimhood, and to thoughtfully consider the potential for profound positive change if you were to wholeheartedly embrace this liberating idea of inner agency.
That's a really powerful question. That invites some deep and honest self-reflection. And it sounds like embracing this idea of atonement and fully taking responsibility for our thoughts isn't always going to be a smooth or easy process. There might be some inherent resistance within us.
Absolutely. Taking full responsibility for our inner world can be a significant challenge. It often goes against very deeply ingrained patterns of thinking and blaming that we've developed over time. So experiencing resistance is a normal and natural part of this transformative process. Therefore, it's absolutely vital to approach yourself with gentleness, patience, and unwavering compassion as you begin to integrate these powerful principles into your daily life. Remember, this is an ongoing journey of self-discovery and growth, not a destination to be reached overnight.
So what are some ongoing practical steps that we can kind of commit to in order to keep integrating this profound idea of atonement as a responsibility into our lives for the long term?
Consistency is truly the key here. Making those practical tools that we've discussed, the dedicated meditation on responsibility, the reflective journaling, the intentional use of affirmations, a regular and consistent part of your daily routine will yield significant and lasting results over time. Furthermore, cultivate a practice of mindful observation of your thoughts and emotional responses throughout your day. Begin to consciously notice those moments when you find yourself slipping back into patterns of blaming others or feeling like a victim of circumstance. The very act of noticing these patterns is the crucial first step towards consciously choosing a different and ultimately more peaceful perspective. And finally, as you cultivate a deeper awareness of your own innate power and your responses, make a conscious effort to extend that same understanding. Compassion and forgiveness to others, recognizing our shared interconnectedness and the potential struggles that they too may be navigating.
So to bring all of these insightful points together, Lesson 139 of A Course in Miracles is really about empowering each and every one of us, isn't it? It's offering us this profound understanding that we possess far more control than we might typically believe over our own inner state and our experience of the world.
Precisely. To recap, really the core message of our deep dive today, Lesson 139 teaches you about the incredible and often untapped power that arises from consciously taking responsibility for your thoughts. This fundamental principle is presented as the key that unlocks the door to freedom from that limiting belief of victimhood and guides you onto a solid and sustainable path of lasting inner peace. By truly recognizing your innate ability to change your mind, to choose your thoughts, you are actively reclaiming your own inherent power and stepping into a more empowered way of being.
So the invitation for you, our listener, is to really take these powerful ideas and put them into practice in your own life. Take some time to reflect on that central question that we discussed. Experiment with those practical tools of meditation, journaling, and affirmations, and observe for yourself what positive shifts begin to unfold in your experience. Thank you so much for lending us your attention today, for guiding us through this really enlightening deep dive.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you to all of you for joining us on Daily Harmony. May your journey continue to be filled with increasing peace, profound understanding, and genuine empowerment. Until our next deep dive together,